I feel better than I ever have felt, mentally, spiritually, physically.
Amen to that.
And so I'm glad I'm still here, man.
And we can thank Celibacy for that. Lenny Kravitz revealing he hasn't had sex in almost a decade. The rocker opening up to The Guardian about how discovering his own father, Cy Kravitz, cheating was the catalyst. His dad told him he'd end up doing the same thing. A fear that came into fruition after his divorce from Lisa Bonet. Telling the mag, after the marriage, I became more like him. I was becoming a player. I didn't want to be that guy, so I had to tackle that, and it took years.
It's vitally important to maintain that love and the relationship, and to keep the family together. And I'm so glad that we were able to do so.
As for how he tackled it, Lenny says it's all about responsibility and discipline while not letting my own desires take over.
I learned a lot about myself.
When asked if he's committed to waiting to meet that special someone, he confirmed, yes, it's a spiritual thing.
It's not about me.
What if it's not all of these women are after you? What if it's the enemy offering you multiple wombs to get your seed in the wrong womb to continue a bloodline cycle?
Whoa.
What if it's just not that he's so fine? No, I need your womb. Because how does dysfunction stay in the bloodline? It goes through womb after womb after womb after womb. So I think if you begin to think deeper, like it's not just like, man, I got all these women, like how do I battle this? I got all that. What if God is requiring for me to be pure to protect my bloodline? And are you passing on the same pain that your father left you? And you're just repeating the cycle. So that's why I said it all depends on how deep you want to go. But my thing that helped me really in college is like, these are multiple wounds that I don't want to carry out the flower's last name.
So when I seen this Lenny Kravitz video when he was talking about that the fact that he has been celibate for almost 10 years, I really wanted us to look at it as a lesson to ourselves. Now, I can't vouch for Lenny and, his relationship with God or Christ or anything like that. I'm not saying that he is someone that you should mimic or try to mimic. Truthfully, the only person we should be mimicking is Christ. But I did want to share his testimony of being celibate for almost 10 years, just as a reminder to us that being celibate and disciplining our bodies is something that we actually can do. It's something we actually can stick to. Sexual sin is something that we can actually overcome, and oftentimes it doesn't feel that way, because we may have these urges and we may have these feelings and we may have these thoughts that completely come into our mind without any type of invitation while we drinking our water, working out, eating breakfast, or whatever we doing. That has nothing to do with that. But that is why God asks us to abstain from having sexual partners unmarried, because when we do that, we're opening ourselves up to soul ties that brings these memories and urges and thoughts back to our bodies and our minds that we have encountered that would not be but for us engaging in those activities. And we throw the word soul tie around, but I want us to really think about what it means for us to have a sexual encounter with someone. When we're having a sexual encounter with someone, and let me just be straight up here. I'm talking about head only. I'm talking about vaginal sex. I'm talking about it all, because, sometimes we'll say, oh, I just let him go down on me, or I went down on him, and blase. When we are having a sexual encounter, we are opening ourselves to the transferring of whatever spirit is within that person to us. Many times we'll say, oh, it's a transferring of energy. And it is to a certain extent, but it's really deeper than energy, because energy does not reach your soul. Spirits reach your soul. When that person who has a spirit of which you may not be aware of enters you unwed, you have tied yourself. You have tied your soul to that spirit. And what happens is, as a result, you may start to experience things from that spirit that was on them that you had not experienced before, because whatever that spirit was is now influencing you. And I know it's difficult, and I know it's hard, and I know, like right now, as many a times as we've tried to overcome the nature of putting relationships on a pedestal, it is still consistently what we are fed in everyday media, what we are fed when we are around people, that you should want to be in a relationship, that you're not at a certain place in life if you're not in a relationship or you have somebody. And the truth of the matter is, it is much harder to be with someone or get in a relationship with someone when sex is off the table. It's much easier to be out here in these streets or booed up or Netflix and chilling when sex is on the table and you offering it. And it's a possibility. It's an option. Sometimes we have a heart to be celibate, but then because that doesn't override our desire not to be alone, we let that desire not to be alone override our heart. And then what happens is you start dimming down what you really want just to have a man in your presence. So instead of you saying, I'm not having sex until I'm married, I'm waiting on that special person, or I'll know when I know, or I'm just taking it one day at a time, or I'm trying to not do this, or I'm trying to not do that, but we'll see because we all fall short. You already creating cracks in the foundation that you're trying to build upon. And let me tell you something. I'm not being judgmental or trying to say this towards you. I'm talking about myself because I have slipped, fall, and fell and slipped several times. I have watched, for anybody who don't watch this, I don't watch the Juanita Bynum's No More Sheep, which is completely, when I tell you, this the old Juanita Bynum, No More Sheets. Pull that up on YouTube. When I tell you that anointing to break the spirit of sexual sin and the level of rawness and authenticity in which this woman spoke truthfully about her testimony of ending back in somebody's sheets will help you set yourself free. So I completely understand falling back and forth, but I also understand being celibate now for almost 3 years, that there are things that we have to put into place that says, I am not going to allow myself to keep falling into this thing over and over. I can't keep saying, I just made a mistake, without putting up proactive measures to stop that mistake. And let me tell you one of the things I had to do this year. I couldn't watch Bridgerton. My stylist put it on the TV when she was doing my hair, and so, that was one thing. It was like an episode or so. But I had to purposefully say, me watching the entire Bridgerton series, which had become a tradition for me and my friend, I could not do it this year because I knew from the last 2 years that I watched it that it arose something in me where I was not only watching a series, but I was watching the clips. Come on now, let's be real, of those of those sexual scenes and moments. It might as well have been soft porn, is what it was given. But I didn't feel too bad about it because people would clothe and I wasn't doing nothing and I wasn't trying to pleasure myself. Come on, ain't no need to be sugarcoating the stuff. But at the same time, I was opening the door for that sexual sin spirit to come in. And because I could not handle it, it may not be somebody else's conviction. Because I could not handle it, I had to shut the door and say, not this year. And I had been hearing it already. I had already been hearing, don't watch Bridgerton. Don't watch Bridgerton this year. Because it was a whole year of rewatching those clips. So whatever it is for you, whatever show it is, whatever music it is, or whatever person it is that may bring you closer to walking into that sexual sin that you do not want to walk into, you have to create boundaries and parameters and straight up sometimes cutoffs around those things so that you are really glorifying God with your body, which is your temple. We don't realize sometimes how sexual sin affects every other area in our lives. Because when you're having sex with someone, instead of you focused on your vision and the purpose that God is calling you to, many of the times you focused on that person, what they doing, why they didn't call you back, why they didn't text you back. All of those things, because now your body is intertwined with theirs. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have certain level of desires toward people who you may not be sexually active with, but I do think we can agree that it is much stronger when you are sexually active with those people. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that since I've been celibate that I haven't had any thoughts, I haven't had any dreams, I haven't had any desires and urges, which are sexual sins to an extent, depending on how I feed into them. I am going to say, though, that I am learning not to feed them. I am learning that they will come, but they don't have to be fed. I am learning that I don't have to ruminate on them, think on them repeatedly over and over and over. There's a difference between a thought that appears or just pops up in your head often. There's a difference between that and a thought that you decide to ruminate on and replay over and over. I may have 10, 15, 20 sexual thoughts per day. Let's just be straight. Let's be straight. Because the issue with not being straight up is you think there's no hope for you because you can't get rid of the sexual thoughts. It's not the thoughts. It's the act that you put behind the thought. And so once you have, and I'm not talking to married folks here who ain't supposed to be thinking sexually about other folks. That's not what I'm talking about. Once you have the thought, then the act is either to act on it physically, to pick up that phone and text somebody, or to ruminate on it, or to go online and watch things that feed into it, or listen to something that feeds into it. That is the difference. When you discipline your body, when you discipline your flesh, that is going to rise up and veer the way in which God did not intend for it to veer, because we live in a world that was infiltrated with sin that we cannot get rid of. When you discipline, though, that flesh through fasting, through praying, through choosing not to ruminate and changing your thoughts, through choosing to listen to different type of music, to choose to cut off certain television shows and things that you view visually. And you can't stop everything because you can't control what other people do. Like I said, my hairstylist was playing Bridgerton on the screen, but I can't control what I play on my TV screen. I can't control what I play on my phone. When you choose to subdue and overcome and discipline that flesh, you will start to see yourself be able to subdue and discipline other areas of your life. And that will make you grow confidence in that you are not subjected or victimized by anything that come towards you, but you actually are walking in the power and the dominion that God has given you in this earth, that God has given you over your flesh and your body. So the next time that you have a thought, or the next time that you're tempted, because we all are tempted, but God said there is no temptation that I have not made a way out of. The next time you are tempted, turn the other way. Go down the other street. Say to yourself, not today, not right now, Satan, not in this moment. And think about what you're thinking about, because you can overcome. You can be that person to one day look up and say, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not who I used to be. But I have allowed myself to be transformed